for these ones. You can read from the book, but I'll just go over some of it and then I'll tell you to read one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. جزاكم الله خيرا for making it out here. I know it's been we had Eid, and I think also the week before we weren't able to be together. So alhamdulillah we're here.
We can't hear you.
Okay. Cannot hear me. You can't hear me because I'm talking low, or you can't hear me like at all. Can you hear me?
I still can't hear. I don't know if it's on my end.
Harun, I want to know how you're responding to me if you can't hear me. Or are you just guessing? I can't hear either. Okay.
I can't hear you.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me? No one can hear me? Okay. Let's do this.
Change the bit.
Assalamu alaikum. You can hear me now?
Yep.
Everyone can hear me? I see the messages. Let's see. Okay, alhamdulillah. طيب. Okay. Now they can hear. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. جزاكم الله خيرا once again for being here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward every single one of you. Inshallah, what we are going to do, because we had a short class the last time that we were together, we're going to go over the things that we talked about last 2 weeks ago, right? That was 2 weeks ago, Badr? Last week was off. So we missed 1 week only. Okay. So we talked about nawaqid al-wudu, what breaks the wudu of a person. We'll just briefly go through it, and then we'll start from where we are today, bi'idhnillah. So he says when it comes to what breaks the wudu, there are really 6 things. 6 things. And what are those 6? What did we say they were? Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh. We said there were 6. The first one, he says, whatever comes from the 2 openings, from the 2 private parts, from the front or the back, anything that comes from it nullifies a person's wudu. So a person would have to go and make wudu. The other one, after that, it is if a person is sleeping in a non-secure form. So meaning if he's laying down and he's sleeping, if he's sleeping in a condition that is not sitting down, the wudu is broken. Even if it is light sleep or if it's deep sleep, if they are laying down, that means they have a requirement before they pray for them to get up and make wudu. After that, he says the losing of the mind, either because of intoxication or because of a sickness. For example, someone becomes drunk, or someone is given anesthesia, and their mind, their capabilities of the mind goes away. That person does not have wudu. Or if it's because of sickness, if someone goes crazy, or if someone, other types of sicknesses that not just being crazy, but that take away your mental capabilities, that also breaks a person's wudu. The other one we said it is the touching of a man, touching a woman that is not from the maharim, skin to skin contact, without a barrier between them. In the Shafi'i madhab, we said this breaks the person's wudu. So if you shake the hand of a woman, wudu is broken. If you touch her forearm, wudu is broken. We go from there, he says, touching private parts. If a person touches their private parts, or the front of the private parts, with the insides, with the palms, this breaks wudu. If he touches it with the outside of the finger or the outside of the hand, does it break the wudu? No. Only when he touches it with the inside, the palm, wudu is broken. The other one, the 6th one that he added, was that if a person touches his back with the same condition, that also breaks the wudu. The private in the back would also break the person's wudu. After that, we talked about what makes mujibat al-ghusl. What makes it wajib for you to perform ghusl? And we said ghusl is the higher form of wudu, a higher form of ritual purification that we have to engage in. And he says there are 6 of them. 3 are shared between man and woman, while another 3 is only specific to women. So he says that the ones that are shared between man and woman, you have whenever the private parts touch one another, ghusl becomes wajib. You cannot just make wudu and pray salah. You would have to make ghusl. Any sexual fluids that would come is the second one. That would also necessitate a person having to perform ghusl. The third one that is shared between man and woman is death. When a person dies, whether it's a man or a woman, it is wajib for them to perform ghusl. But they are not the ones that perform it, it is us that perform it on them. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الجنب مبروك وسعيد مشكور. يا ليث. الله أكبر جزاك الله خير. Leith, welcome back. We miss you. Allah accept it. And so death, like the other five, instead of the person doing it themselves, because obviously they can't do it, it is upon the other people to do it. So it is fard for us to perform the washing of a person that has passed away. The three that are just specific to women, he says they are one, menstruation. When it ends, a person would have to make ghusl. From there, a nifas, which is postnatal bleeding. So after you have given birth, the bleeding that occurs, once that ends, performing ghusl. And then the last one, the act of giving birth. Al-wilada, the act of giving birth also requires a person performs ghusl. This is, I believe, this is where we stopped last week or 2 weeks ago. صح? They read for us from here now. بسم الله.
فرائض الغسل فصل. وفرائض الغسل ثلاثة أشياء: النية وإزالة النجاسة إن كانت على بدني وإيصال الماء إلى جميع الشعر والبشرة.
So he says, فرائض الغسل. What is required from ghusl? The obligatory actions of ghusl. Without doing these, ghusl has not been fulfilled. So he says, for those, there are three things that you have to do. First one is you have to have niyyah that this is ghusl, that this is not just a washing of the body, that this is not just a shower, but this is washing or performing ghusl, which is an act of worship. And we know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ niyyah, that all of our actions are judged based on their intentions. So the intentions for ghusl and shower, we'll explain a little bit later, it has to be that this is a form of ibadah, and it is a spiritual or a ritual purification. So that is the first one. The second one is if you have a najasa on your body, it is required that you remove all of it. The najasa that we're talking about here can be both like the smaller najasat that would come. For example, someone uses the bathroom before they would perform ghusl. So it is required through istinja that they remove the najasat that have come. Or it could also be the things that make ghusl wajib. For example, any fluids that would come, you would be required to wash them off. Then from there you go into the third one, making sure that water touches every single hair and every single skin. So the entire body needs to become wet. This water needs to, everywhere it has to reach. Wherever there's hair, it has to reach. Wherever there's skin, the water has to reach. If we do this, then we have done the fara'id of ghusl. Now we are out of the state of janaba. And the things that we were unable to do before, now we can do them. The things that we were unable to do were things like praying, things like reading the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making tawaf, and so on. All of those are going to be allowed for us to do again once we are out of the state of janaba. Any questions on these three?
You said every single part of the skin, that like underneath the nails as well.
Alhamdulillah, underneath the nails as well. So how do we get under one is how often should we be cutting our nails? Huh?
Every week.
So at least every week, right? Jum'ah, from the sunnah of Jum'ah is that we cut our nails. Hopefully, in that 1 week, it shouldn't grow to a part where it is being covered. And when we say under, like now, my nails they're cut, alhamdulillah. So I wouldn't try to go under these nails. But when they grow, you can see the lines on my fingers where the nail will grow over this, and there will be space here. That part needs to be washed, and hopefully, just scrubbing one time with the loafer or this, whatever scrub we use will get the water to that part. Right, but
We mentioned najasa, right?
yes.
But najasa doesn't necessarily mean dust or things like
So
food.
najasa is impurities.
Exactly. So it's not like, let's say, like you have food under your nails. Like you don't need
Mhm.
to actually get rid of that for it to be clean. It's as long as the things that you mentioned, bodily fluids and the
Okay.
right? Like how often do you get that under your nails? It's kind of
I mean, I cut my nails so rarely.
okay.
No, but okay, let's do this. Let's think about this. If I ate food and somehow got under my nails, I had to make wudu. And that food, those particles still stayed there. Have I fulfilled wudu? Says yes. We say no. Say no. One of the things, like the water needs to reach that place. So sometimes not even food. Dirt is not najis, right? Like dirt is not najis. Sometimes we get like those the black things, right? Like in your nails. What if that prevents the water from going to that place, then you haven't performed wudu. So it'd have to be like actually cleaning those places, right? In order for you to be in the state of wudu. And then from there we say the same for while we're performing ghusl. Now, any other questions on the fara'id of ghusl? Only three things. Ghusl, actually, let's go through the sunan and then we'll talk about ghusl. Sunnah.
سنن الغسل. سنن الغسل 5 أشياء. التسمية والوضوء قبله وإمرار اليد على الجسد والموالاة وتقديم اليمنى على اليسرى.
طيب. Sunan al-ghusl here means the mustahab acts, the beloved acts that a person should do when performing ghusl. So the three are what is required. How do you improve it? You add these 5 things. He says the first is a tasmiyah, which is what? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So a tasmiyah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Then al-wudu qablahu. Before you perform ghusl, you actually perform wudu. So just the regular wudu, wash the hands, the mouth, the nose, the face, hands, legs, and so on. You perform that. From there, he says, وَإِمْرَارُ الْيَدْ عَلَى الْجَسَدِ. Imrar here means like rubbing. So you actually rub the body parts instead of just letting, in the first one, he says, إِيصَالُ الْمَاءِ, like letting the water touch. So if I theoretically got in the shower and I stood like this and the water is hitting me and it's running, and then I would turn to every side so that like my entire body would become what? I have performed ghusl. But what's recommended is you just don't do that, but you actually would rub, and we'll say instead of rub, we'll say wash. So you use your hand to wash your body. That is the fourth one. And then he says, wal muwala. That al muwala means you do it one after the other. So the way that he's mentioned it here, first you would say Bismillah ar-Rahman. You would make your intentions. Then you would say the basmala. Then you would actually you would make your intentions. You would go and you would remove the najasa from yourself. You would make wudu. Then you would let the water run as you're rubbing over. So that's how the steps you would take to do it. And then as you're doing it, you want to give preference to the right side over the left side, meaning you would begin with the right hand, the right side of the body, the right side of the hair, the right side of your head, of your face, and then you go to the left. These are the sunnahs that he has decided to mention. There are others that could also be mentioned, like drying yourself off with your fingers. So taking the water and dropping it off and letting it stay on you as much as you can, then coming out and praying sunnah and so on. But he's mentioned these 5, and these are the 5 that we should be doing. Now, how does a person actually perform ghusl? If we stick to the fara'id, we said just standing in the shower with the intentions of this is ghusl suffices. So you just go stand in the shower, making sure that every part of your body becomes clean, we'll say, or becomes wet. You are in the state of you've taken yourself away from janaba. Now, how should we actually do it? What we should do is, I think this is a hack that I personally use. Every time I shower, whether I'm in the state of janaba or not, I make the intention that this is ghusl. Every single time I shower. Why? Because it removes the necessity of having to make wudu afterwards. All I'm going to do is I have to shower before going somewhere. Khalas. This is ghusl. Showering already makes it a lot easier to do ghusl than how it used to be performed. You would have to gather your water. Then you would have to take it from there and like showering was not as convenient as it is today as during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and so on. So when we get into the shower, our entire bodies are going to become wet. We are going to wash ourselves. We're going to scrub ourselves. We're going to put soap on ourselves and so on. Why not just make my intentions of this being a shower, change it to I am performing ghusl. If you do it that way, you just take a regular shower. One thing we should do to make sure that I'm actually thinking of ghusl is just rinsing of the mouth and the nose. Just do that, and then like just to remind yourself, this is not just a regular shower. But other than that, that would be it. Any questions? Yeah.
So does that also mean if you go swim with the intention you want to make ghusl, that would also count? Does
So
it meet the needs?
okay, does it meet the needs?
As long as you reach it.
Like if you're in a
Okay.
lake
If you're in the lake,
and you jump in the water,
uh,
you just rub yourself.
that's it. If you just make sure your head goes under, you come out khas. We are out of the state of janaba. I think we talked about this when we talked about wudu, right? We said if someone like dives into the pool, intentions of wudu, and just completely wet, he comes out khalas, he's done with wudu.
Did we do that? I don't know if we discussed it during the
We talked about it because he mentions, I think in wudu he talks about the only time where you don't follow tartib of going from one to the other, from like your face into the arms, is when you submerge yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
why I was like asking about ghusl because ghusl is like there's only three.
That's it. Make your intentions, dive into there. And khalas, you come out as now you're not in the state of janaba.
So can we go through the sunan again? So you said intention, basmala.
So intentions is not sunnah. That is from the fara'id. The sunnah is the tasmiyah. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim actually. And then wudu, like actual wudu. Then from there, taking your hands and rubbing your body as you shower, as you're performing ghusl. Doing it in order. So you wouldn't, for example, you wouldn't make wudu and say Bismillah. You wouldn't rub your hands, then go and make wudu. But you do it in the steps that have been said. And then تقديم اليمنى على اليسرى, you just give preference, like we do in wudu, to the right side of the body, to the left, and then the left, right? We would begin with the right and then the left. Right leg, left leg. Right arm, left arm. Now, how would the Prophet ﷺ actually perform ghusl? Because these are like minimum requirements that we are being told about. The way that they would perform ghusl, actual ghusl itself, this is how it would be. You would have the bath, the water there, and you would begin with washing hands. After you wash your hands, you would go to washing your face. How many times? 3 times. From the face, you wash your head 9 times. The way that you do it is you would wash your right side 3 times. So like this, like this, like this. Then left side 3 times. Like this, like this, like this. And then you would take water and throw it down the middle of your head 3 times. Then after you would wash your right hand, right side of your body 3 times.
Is it all the way to the legs?
All the way to the bottom. So from here to there. Then you would go from the left to the bottom. If while you did that you managed to do the like this, when you say this side, you do here and back. That's you will be done when you do this side. But if you only did the front, so you would do the front 3 times, the front this side 3 times, then the back 3 times, this side back 3 times, and you'll be done with ghusl. Any questions?
So there's no wudu.
There's no wudu in ghusl. That's why here it's put as the sunnah. It's the sunnah of thing. Because if you think about it, a person that performs wudu in the state of janaba, they're still in the state of janaba. Their condition has not changed. The only time that it becomes beneficial to make wudu when you are in the state of janaba is, for example, if you somehow entered the state of janaba and you wanted to leave the house or you wanted to go to sleep. The Prophet ﷺ said, make wudu and then you go to sleep. That's the only time where wudu actually does something, but still doesn't take you out of the state of janaba. But that's when, like, if you had to leave the house and you didn't have time to perform ghusl, you would just perform wudu, go back, understanding that you are still in the state of in the state of janaba. You'd have to come and do it again before you would go and pray salah and so on. That's the only time. So this is from the sunnah. So in the ghusl itself, we don't make wudu. Right before we would make it and then go to it. Any other questions? Bismillah.
The first one, you said you rinse your mouth and your nose, so
Mhm.
that's considered part of the skin. Then.
So not
Using ghusl.
so not regularly, but there are some scholars that add it as one of the fara'id of wudu, or they say you have to rinse the mouth and the nose. But regularly, hopefully in the shower we're doing it, or right after when we're about to brush our teeth, we're doing it. So it's like it'll figure itself out. But it like for here, it wouldn't be something that you'd be required to do. But if you're just doing the shower, and like for example, you're going to work and you're like, I have to shower, you need something that makes it a little different than just the intentions for yourself, but not a requirement for it to be I've performed ghusl. Like, next one.
The next one, when you're doing ghusl and you're doing the masah,
Yeah.
and you touch,
Uh-huh.
does that help the wudu?
Allahu Akbar. I like that question. So if a person is making ghusl and with his palms touches his private parts, has he broken his wudu? Huh? He's broken his wudu? So then he'll have to start over? He hasn't broken his wudu?
Because you're removing the najasa. Like you mentioned, as part of the
removing of najasa. So you need your palms to remove the najasa.
Mhm.
So while you are purifying yourself, you are going from an impure state to a state of purity. In that state, it wouldn't break your wudu. Afterwards, when you're done, and then it would break your wudu. طيب. Any other questions? Bismillah. Read for us.
الاغتسالات المسنونة.
So he says the ghusls that are sunnah for a person to perform. We should really take it here as ones that you and I need to do on a consistent basis. Bismillah.
فصل واغتسالات المسنونة 17 غسلة. 17.
So there are 17 times in which performing ghusl is a sunnah. You will see as we read along that some of them are. This is Bismillah. Let's just read.
غسل الجمعة والعيدين والاستسقاء والكسوف والغسل من غسل الميت والكافر إذا أسلم. You want to cover those? Then go to the next.
Okay, yeah, let's cover those. Okay. So he says the first one out of 17, Jum'ah. Right? Jum'ah, the Prophet ﷺ in the Sunnah has made it very clear that we should be performing ghusl before we go to Jum'ah. In the Shafi'i madhab, it's actually recommended that you wait until the last possible moment before you go to the masjid to perform ghusl. So if I'm going to the 1:30 khutbah, I want to get as close as possible to where I have enough time to actually go to perform ghusl. The Prophet ﷺ, from the rewards of it, like when you look at the rewards of Jum'ah itself, the benefits that a person gets, it always begins with man ightasala, whoever performs ghusl, wabtakar, or watabana. Like he would go early, he would perform ghusl, he would go early, he would perform, he would put on, perfume. He would go, he would get close to the imam, to the front, to the imam. He would pray his sunnah. Then this is the rewards that they're going to get. Almost every reward of Jum'ah revolves around it beginning with ghusl. So hopefully we know enough that every Jum'ah that if we're able to, we go and we perform ghusl. From there you come to Al-Eidain. The two Eid Salahs. The two Eid Salahs, we should be performing ghusl before we go to them. Is it required? Can I just go in the state of wudu? Yes, you can. But what is better for you is that you perform ghusl and you go and you pray the two Eid Salahs. What is istisqa? What is istisqa? This is the when you make dua for rain, and there's a khutbah, and there's dua. In that, before you go to the place, you would perform ghusl. I don't think we do. I've never heard of it. So that's istisqa here. This usually happens in our countries back home when there's droughts and things like that, and they would perform it. Wal khusuf wal kusuf. What is khusuf? Solar.
Eclipse or lunar?
So kusuf is lunar. Khusuf is the solar. When it happens, you have to go and pray salah. Right? You have to go and pray salah. I think here they've prayed it a few times, and we'll talk about it when we get to the salah section. But these are very long salahs, and one of the things that used to surprise me when I was studying a long time ago was how am I supposed to perform ghusl when what we know about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was when these things would happen, he would hasten towards praying salah. He would rush to go and pray. But now in our times, like we know when it's coming. It's not a shock. So we're like, in 3 hours we're about to go pray. So I used to always think, why is this here? They didn't have this technology to know that a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse was coming. But they're telling you go and perform ghusl, which we shouldn't do while it's happening, right? It should be done before. So this really becomes beneficial, like for us. If I know after Isha, usually the ones here happen nighttime, right? The day ones are not that long. Nighttime ones are the longer ones. You will make your ghusl, then you go to the masjid, and the point of it is to pray from the beginning until the end. The beginning while it's happening. We don't do that because we're too busy watching it. You're right, and then salah is too long apparently. So, but Allah make it easy.
Is this sunnah or farad?
This is from the sunnah. The prayer itself is sunnah. So if we ever do a sunnah act, we shouldn't cut corners with it because it's a sunnah act. Right? If we decide to do it, we should just do it as it should be done. And the reason why the Prophet ﷺ used to hasten towards praying the salah was because these are the signs of the world ending. Right? Like the world, if one of the signs is the sun and the moon are going to lose their light. So while you're seeing that, if there's a possibility that this is that time, you want to be in the state of prayer. Right? So for those, you should make ghusl. The other one is, he says you should make ghusl after you have performed ghusl for a dead body. After you've performed ghusl for a dead body, you need to go and perform ghusl yourself. This is from the sunnah. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where it says, whoever washes the dead body, let him perform ghusl. There are some scholars that looked at it and said that you are actually required after the washing of the body to also perform ghusl. But in our madhab, it is from the sunnah that a person goes after washing the body, he's going to perform ghusl. These things do not require a person to be in the state of janaba to perform ghusl. right? These are, even if you are in a state of wudu at the time of Jum'ah, at the time of Eid, at the time of the salahs that were mentioned, at the time of washing a body, it's sunnah for you to go and do it, to just go and perform it, this act. Then he says the last one he said was wal kafir ila aslam. When a kafir becomes a Muslim, the first thing they should do is from the sunnah is that they should go and perform ghusl. Right? They have purified themselves internally through Islam. Now let them purify themselves externally with ghusl. Any questions up to here? Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7. So that means we have 10 more left. Bismillah.
والمجنون والمغمى عليه إذا أفاق
So,
والأصل
the crazy person, or we'll even say the sick person, when the sickness goes away, or when they regain their minds, they would have to perform ghusl. والمغمى عليه. What is مغمى عليه? This is me.
passed out.
So when someone loses consciousness, when they wake up, it is sunnah for them to perform ghusl. This could be one that is short, or this could be one that is long. For example, a person that goes into a coma for, let's say, 4 days, or a person that goes into it for 4 years, when they eventually come back, they should perform ghusl. طيب.
Obviously, this doesn't pertain to sleeping.
This does not pertain to sleeping. So that's why he put, and sleep is not a full loss of consciousness.
والغسل عند الإحرام وللدخول مكة
Mhm,
وللوقوف بعرفة
mhm.
وللمبيت
المبيت مزدلفة.
بمزدلفة
أها.
ولمرئ
أها.
ولرمي الجمال الثلاث
Mhm.
وللطواف وللسعي ولدخول مدينة رسول الله صلى
صلى الله عليه وسلم.
الله عليه وسلم.
So basically, up to here, all we have talked about is ghusl wherever you are, wherever you are. Then he brings things that happen in Mecca and Medina, or on your ways to going to Mecca and Medina. So he says, وَالْغُسْلُ عِنْدَ الْإِحْرَامِ, performing a ghusl when you are going to enter the state of ihram. This is a lot like less difficult than it used to be before. For us, for example, I went to Hajj 2019. We flew from here to Dubai. In Dubai, we had to put on our ihram because we would pass over the miqat. So before we left the hotel to go to the airport with our ihrams, we were told, all of you perform ghusl, buy your ihram, and let's go. You're able to do that. And that part for us generally is easy. Then it says, وَلِدُخُولِ مَكَّةِ, entering Mecca, performing ghusl. Where would you actually perform this? For us, there was no place because we landed. We landed in Jeddah. From Jeddah, we went to Mecca. So we entered Mecca before we could actually make ghusl. But let's say for some reason you did not enter the state of ihram and you are headed to Mecca, you should perform ghusl before you enter Mecca. So when you're leaving, you should perform ghusl before you go there. Then he says, وَلِلْوُقُوفِ بِعَرَفَةِ, before standing on Arafah, you should perform ghusl. I don't think you're able to perform ghusl ever before you go to Arafah. All right, there's no bathrooms, and on top of that, there's too many people. Then he says, وَلِلْمَبِيتِ بِمُزْدَلِفَةِ. This is even harder to perform ghusl because you technically, like, when you performing Hajj, you go from Arafah, you stand there until Maghrib time. Maghrib time, you're supposed to leave and go to Muzdalifah to go and sleep, to wake up in the morning for, which is our day of Eid, to be the biggest day of Hajj with a lot of things. You don't get to Arafah sometimes maybe until midnight. You're exhausted, and you don't get to Muzdalifah until maybe midnight or even after that. So what ends up happening, you don't have time to think about, I have to perform ghusl. But in the ideal situation where Hajj was not as busy as it is today, you should perform ghusl before you go to Arafah to stand. Because when does the standing start? After what salah? After dhuhr. So you combine dhuhr and asr at the time of dhuhr. Then you go to Arafah, the mountain, and you stand there. And you stand there until Maghrib time. In the times before, you would be able to go in the morning and perform ghusl and go walk to Arafah and get there and do the standing. Today, because of our Hajj, you're not going to be able to do that. Then he says, after that, وَلِلرَّمِي الْجِمَارِ الثَّلَاثَةِ. When you are throwing the rocks, when you're doing stoning the jamarat, you should perform ghusl. This would mean you perform ghusl 3 days. صح? The 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. This is when you do this thing. Technically, a person should perform ghusl before going every time they would go through the stones. Another thing that is almost impossible for us today to go and follow the sunnah because the tents are very cramped. I was talking to someone, I think Friday. They calculated for one bathroom, they make one bathroom for about 20,000 people. And good luck trying to take a long ghusl in there, or even a short one. Right? Hajj is very different. And then he says, "Walid tawaf." When you're performing tawaf, you should be in the state of ghusl. You should perform it before you go, and also sa'i. You should go and perform it. If a person goes to perform tawaf today, whether it's Umrah or Hajj, right away comes the sa'i. You make tawaf, you walk to Safa, and you would begin the sa'i. It wasn't always like that, right? There would be like houses in between, but now the mountain itself is swallowed by the masjid. So there's not even time to say, I finished my tawaf, let me go perform ghusl before I go and do sa'i. There wouldn't be that because it's right there, I have to walk to it. I have to walk, do my sa'i. Then, but it should be like, if we are able to, we should be, performing ghusl or just taking one ghusl for all of these things. Right? So before I go make my umrah, I begin with ghusl. So I have my ghusl for a tawaf. I have it for a sa'i, and so on. Then he says the last one, to enter the city of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a person should perform ghusl before they go. This is a little bit easier for us to do because you have time and it's like you're going, so you could go after finishing Hajj or before it, you shower, you perform your ghusl, then you would go into the city of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Any questions up to this point on these sunan of ghusl or the times that ghusl is sunnah? 17 times. We should make it a goal of ours that, inshallah, we try to fulfill these one day. That I am going to perform ghusl in these times that are recommended, especially Mecca and Medina. Right, we should have intentions of going to Mecca and Medina, whether it's to perform Hajj or to perform Umrah, bi'idhnillah. Okay, next chapter.
والمسح على الخفين
Mhm.
خاص المسح على الخفين جائز بثلاثة شرائط. أن يبتدأ لبسهما بعد كمال الطهارة، وأن يكونا ساترين
لمحلهما لمحل الغسل.
لمحل غسل الفرد من القدمين، وأن يكونا مما يمكن تتابع المشي عليهما.
طيب. So he says المسح على الخفين, wiping over خفين. We're going to keep it in Arabic for now. We're not going to translate it just yet. So, interesting thing that we should point out, he tells us about ghusl, and then he brings al-masah al-khuffayn, kind of indicating to you that this has nothing to do with ghusl, because he's moving to a new chapter. And for ghusl, al-masah does not enter into it. You cannot wipe over socks. You cannot wipe over al-khuffayn when you are performing ghusl. طيب, this is a specialty of wudu. Not only that, some of the scholars have said this is a gift that was given to the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now he says that you need to have three conditions before you are able to wipe over the khufs. So he says the first one, that you wear them after بعد كمال الطهارة. What? When you completed making wudu, or when you are in the state of wudu, you put on your khuffayn. We get this. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was in a travel, and Mughira ibn Shu'bah, or Shu'bah ibn Mughira, he says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while he was beginning to make wudu, let me remove your khuffayn. Let me remove it for you. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, دعهما, like leave them, because فإني أدخلتهما طاهرتين. Like when I put my legs into them, my legs were pure. So leave them, meaning I'm going to wipe over them. So the first condition is you wear it after having purity. You're in the state of wudu. And then he says the second condition, وأن يكون ساترين, that these two khuffain, they are going to ساترين, covering المحل, the place, the area, the condition of al-ghusl, al-fard min al-qadamain, what is required for you to wash your feet. What the areas that you wash, these two things have to cover. If they do not cover, you cannot do masah on them. The third one, and then he says, وَأَن يَكُونَ مِمَّا يُمْكِنُ, the third condition is that you should be able to al-mashi alayhima, walk using them. You should be able to walk using the khuffayn. Now, can socks be used? Some type of socks can be used. Not all types of socks. They have to be made of material that you would be comfortable walking in. Secondly, they cover the feet that need to be washed. If they're missing these, they cannot be wiped over. Now, we are going to say you can determine the socks that you're wearing if they fit these conditions or not. I think like these type of socks fit the condition for me to wipe over them. So other types of socks, like I've seen some very strange ones, people wiping over them, and it's like they're already half off. But you guys know the suit ones, the loafer ones that all have the opening. Yeah, I've seen people wipe over those. Those
Don't
don't.
even cover.
They don't even cover your feet. They cover your toes. But again, the brother's like, okay.
So,
Uh,
so that also applies to like boots, shoes, anything that you're wearing.
so it applies to anything. Let's do it like this. We're going to say it applies to anything that could keep your feet warm. So there's like warmth that come from them, and they cover where it needs to be washed, and you're able to walk in them. So if you have boots or even shoes that are like, let's say, high tops, they're very high and they cover past where you're supposed to wash, then you could wipe over them. But with the condition that you put your feet inside when like you had wudu, you're in the state of being a tahir. Any questions? طيب بسم الله. Read the next one.
مدة المسح يمسح المقيم بما يوما وليلة،
Mhm.
والمسافر 3 أيام بالغين
بديالهن.
بلياليهن.
Mhm.
ابتداء المدة من حين يحدث بعد لبس الكفين،
Mhm.
فإن مسح في الحضر ثم سافر أو مسح في السفر ثم قام تم مسح مقيم.
Okay. So he says, مدة المسح, the length of wiping over. How long can you actually wipe over your socks? He says the muqim, which is the person that is not traveling, the one that is in his home city, for him, he's able to do it for a day and a night, otherwise known as 24 hours. So for 24 hours, daytime, nighttime. For the musafir, the one that is not a muqim, the one that is traveling, he's able to do it for 3 days, including their nights. So a total of 72 hours. Then he says, when does it actually start? He says it starts from the moment that you are outside of the state of wudu after you have put on your shoes or your socks. For example, today I made wudu and I put on my socks. Let's say I did it 9 o'clock. It was like 9:30. Let's say 9 a.m. 9 a.m. tomorrow, if I somehow keep my socks on until that time, do I continue? Do I still have time to wipe over them at 9:30? Yes or no? So right now I'm in the state of wudu still. So from the time I lose wudu, like let's say 11:30, or let's say 12, make it easy on ourselves. It wouldn't go from 9 to 9, even though I wore them at 9. It would actually, the counter would start counting from 12 when I lost my wudu and I wiped over. So from there I have until 12, which actually goes beyond the day and the night that we're talking about. Right? So it's not just that the 24 hours from where you wear it, but 24 hours from the first usage of the wiping. So when you lost your wudu and you went to go wipe, from that moment you have 24 hours. The same for the one that is traveling. It's not just because he's traveling, but let's say, like, so he gives the example here. He says, let's say fil hadar, while he's here, he wiped over the socks. He wiped over it. Then he travels. He goes to travel. Or he's wiped in the state of travel. Then he goes back to his city. He goes back home. In that condition, what he would actually do is the one of here. So it would only be 24 hours. But for the traveler, if he's traveling for, let's say, 3 days, in the middle of the travel, he wipes over. From there, he has 72 hours, as long as he's in the state of travel. Any questions here?
If you sleep, you start counting from a good sleep.
Yeah, you go from what broke the wudu. So from that time that you went to bed. So if I kept it on all the way until wudu until Isha, and I go to sleep, so from there it would be 24 hours. طيب مطلت. Let's go over there. What nullifies a person's المسح?
مبطلات المسح يبطل المسح 3 أشياء بخلاعهما
Mhm,
انقضاء انقضاء المادة
mhm.
وما يوجب الغسل.
So he says what nullifies or what makes it invalid for you to wipe over are three things. The first one, it is removing them. If you remove after you've wiped, not before. So let's say right now, if I remove my socks, I'll still be in the state of wudu. طيب? Because I didn't use the socks yet. But after using them, taking them off, I can't wipe again. Or time ends. The time that you were able to wipe is over now. In that condition, you are unable to wipe again. Or while you have socks on, you enter the state of janaba and you have to perform ghusl. There's no wiping now. And these are the things that destroy the ability or take away the ability of a person being able to wipe over the socks. Any questions?
So taking them off.
Yes.
So if you take them off, it stops the wiping.
Mhm.
Still like you're still
You still in tahara.
take them off and wear them again.
So like if I took them off now and put them on, I'll still be able to wipe over them. But if I wiped them, like if I wiped them and I took it off, then I wouldn't be able to put them back on and wipe again.
But you would lose your wudu as well.
So there are some scholars that say you lose your wudu. But there's a friend in our madhab you lose the wudu. But there are some scholars, from them, Imam Ahmed and Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, that hold the opinion that removing them does not break a person's wudu, even after you've wiped them. Right? But in our madhab, it's you remove the socks after wiping, the wudu is broken. And also another interesting thing comes here really. Um, what happens if someone makes wudu and gets a haircut after? Does that break their wudu or not?
Why was getting a haircut? Quick on it.
Why would taking the socks off break the wudu? What did you do to the socks? You wiped them. What did you do to your hair? You wiped them. Now the hair has been removed. So what happened to that wudu that the person had? There's some scholars that make this argument to support that taking it off, just like taking this off, would break a person's wudu.
You can draw that same argument that if you ate, even though you rinsed your mouth, now you've made it dirty again by eating.
But eating, we don't eat dirty things. Foods that we won't consider dirty. طيب, we'll digress from this point. But if we are going to go with, if I've wiped it and I take it off, I am no longer in the state of wudu. Yes.
What if your socks get dirty, or not your socks, but your
Uh-huh.
say like
Uh-huh.
let's say you've worn your boots and you've made a boot,
Mhm.
you wiped over them, and then you walk in some, let's say like dog
Mhm.
or something. And then
So you just remove it.
you remove it, or can you just like rinse it?
No, I mean remove the najasa,
Oh.
not remove the shoes and so on. So touching things that are najis, touching things that does not break wudu, right? Like, so, for example, if
You
if-
can't really-
yeah, you just cannot perform, like, if someone, like your child pees on you or something, it's najis, but it doesn't mean that now I have to go and make wudu. If it got on your clothes, I'd wash it. If it got on your body, you'd wash it. And this you would apply to every type of najasat. So animal droppings are najis, sir. So if I stepped in one, I can't pray like that. But if once I get rid of it, then my state of wudu is still there. Right? Like, any other questions? Bismillah. Actually, let us stop here today. Because now he goes to at-tayammum. And we'll do at-tayammum next week. And I think that would be the end of الطهارة. بعد التيمم, oh nope, just a few more. Okay, so we have maybe 2 weeks in طهارة, and then we'll go into Salah بإذن الله. Any questions for what we have covered today?
These things again.
So no, what the way that he authors the book and the reasons he's going through them is, in the beginning he shares things that have similarities. So what's happening is basically like our understanding now should be, how do I enter into the state of tahara? First, I need to understand what type of water, what categories of water. Then, what are some recommended things of purifying oneself? Wudu we talked about. Then he's like, okay, we'll go into ghusl. But wait, there's still other forms of cleaning oneself or purifying oneself that are going to come. But then at the end, he's going to talk about like the najasat. Because now you know, even though we've talked about what nullifies wudu, what requires you to perform ghusl and things like that, at the end he's going to say, these are purification, this is the opposite of it. Right? So he's like building our way up to, technically, like every time we move, there should be questions. Right? And we did al-masah al-khuffayn. The only thing left of purifying oneself now is at-tayammum. So he's going to bring that next. And then at-tayammum, there were some things that he touched on, al-nifas wal-hayd wal-wilada, that now he has to expand on. Then after that, he's like, okay, al-najasat is going to come. And I think al-najasat is what he... Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he finishes on al-najasat. And then so he goes like ma yuhramu ala al-junub, things like that. And then وما يحرم على المحدث, what you are not allowed to do, and he completes it there. And inshallah, our plan would be 2 weeks we'll finish at-tahara, then we go to as-salah, and then so on. I think this book ends where? What's the last thing we talk about? Is it Hajj? Allah. Inshallah, hopefully that comes by the time we get to it, it's time for next Hajj, and we'll actually go and do it there. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah accept it from us. May Allah fulfill our intentions. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.